Anup, 1 more minute, 11:05, 11:06. People are coming in.
Sure.
People are staying in the waiting room, I think.
Akash,
Good morning, Manoj ji.
and make him the co-host. He's got included from the separate account as well.
Good morning, Rajesh ji. Good morning.
Mahesh Jain. If we can make him the co-host, the other Mahesh.
Anubhuti, there are two Mahesh Jains.
We already have Mahesh sir. I've made him co-host. He was just on the screen right now. Mahesh sir, can we do an audio check?
So Mahesh may join from mobile and laptop both actually.
Okay, so there are two Mahesh Jain. You want other also to be made host or what?
Yeah, we already made him the co-host.
Akash, Mahesh Jain hai na, there are two accounts right now. So one of them you have made a co-host. Okay, now second is also co-host. Yeah, perfect.
So this session is also live on YouTube right now. Whenever you say, we can start the session. Anup sir.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Jai Jinendra and good morning, everybody. Myself, Anup Mehta, Vice Chairman at GIF and co-founder at Z Nation Lab. At Z Nation Lab, we nurture and invest in early stage tech companies. We'll be moderating this session along with Mr. Mahesh Jain, Vice Chairman at GIF and MD Nectar Trading and Companies Investments. The focus of today's AI.
Anup, you seem to have frozen. Okay, Mahesh ji, would you want to rather begin while I think we have lost Anup?
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I think till Anup comes on board, I'm going to continue with this session. So, with the formalities of today, the session name is called Game Changer. It is brought to you under GITO by Jain Innovation Foundation in collaboration with GITO Nasik and GITO Youth Wing. So, welcome you all. I would take the privilege of calling to do the welcome address. Yes, Satish Parekh.
Good morning and Jai Jinendra.
Sorry, I'll just intervene. I'll give the introduction of Satish ji. He's the mentor of Nasik chapter currently. He's the former Secretary General Jito Apex and he's MD of Ashoka Buildcon. It would be very interesting for everybody to know that when GIF was created, it was the brainchild of the last Apex Working Committee. And the lead at that point in time was Satish ji Parakh. So we owe a lot to him. In fact, in our initially, all the teething troubles that we had, he was our sole go-to person whom we kept bothering all the time. So over to Satish ji.
Thank you, Swanubhuti. Good morning, Jai Jinendra. On behalf of Nasik chapter, Jito Incubation and Innovation Foundation, and Jito Youth Wing, I welcome today's speaker, Mr. Shreyans Daftari, a young research scientist at NASA in California, who will guide us on artificial intelligence, robotics, and machine learning. A Nasik Jito member and Apex Secretary, Mr. Milind Shah, and also Mr. Manoj Mehta, who is current chairman of JIF. Both of them had been trying very hard since long to get this program done at NASIC. So today we are there with this virtual technology with us. The basic objective of organizing this session is to provide information on what all is done at JIF and JAN, Jito Angel Network. Let me tell you, the basic vision of creating JIF and JAN was to create a world-class ecosystem where we can give opportunities to all our giant startups and people who want to invest in technology and future in giant startups. So this is a great platform which is created. And let me tell you, over the years, under the leadership of Manoj Mehta, who was involved from day one, and Swanubhuti, who is heading this incubation and JN, this has evolved as one of the best in the country. So today we have a state-of-art 8,000 square feet, very nice incubation center, which is uncomparable to any of these available in the India, and best people to invest in future giants. My appeal to all of you is, to all these people who are participating today, must participate in various sessions which we'll be having throughout the coming seasons, and take opportunity to invest in the future. Future is youth, future is innovators. So I want everybody to come and join. I also welcome Rajeshji Vardhan, who is director in charge for Jito Youth Wing. So this will be a great platform to get connected. Youth and JIF together can definitely take it forward to the next orbit. Jito Nasik chapter has been extremely active under the leadership of Shantilalji Bafna and Satish Hiran. Even in lockdown period of last 60 days, they have conducted more than 10 webinars on various topics, from emotional intelligence to upcoming technologies and all topics from finance to COVID. So this is a great team we have had at Nasik. Today, we are having two startups, Green Hue Wellness and Hey Didi. Both of them are extremely innovative, and we welcome both of them on this platform. With this, I thank everybody, and I appeal everybody to keep participating in such sessions. Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Anup.
I think Mahesh sir, while we get Anup sir back online, can we have the next welcome speech? Maybe Rajesh Vardhan sir.
Anup, are you back? Okay, so then I'll take the privilege of inviting the Jito Youth Director in charge, Sri Rajeshji Vardhan, to give his initial talk. Please, Rajeshji Vardhan.
Good morning, everyone. Jai Jinendra. On behalf of Jito Youth Wing, I heartily welcome today's our main speaker, Shreyanshji Daftari. Like Satishji mentioned, he is a legend, and the idea and the concept of JIF was promulgated and implemented under his direction. In the last time also, we were together in the Jito Apex. Basically, friends, Jito Youth Wing and JIF has really done a massive work. We have done a seminar in Pune where thousands of youth joined with JIF, and in the process, in the same startup concept, at that point of time, 4 crores were finalized by the JIF to new startups under the youth. So this is a great thing of combination of Jito Youth Wing and GIF, and which is going to get benefited for the youth. So friends, I request everyone to connect all the youths who have got a great vision. They want to do something. GIF is there under the great leadership of Manojji. It's doing an excellent job, excellent work. Milinji and everyone are doing tremendous hard work. So friends, I once again heartily welcome you on behalf of Jito Youth Wing and other teams. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry for that inconvenience. I was just about to tell one short story which will encourage the youth to be part of this platform. As I was saying, in 2016, somewhere I was not at all part of Jito. I received a call from Jito G2G wing, which was participating and organizing at Silicon Valley, USA at that time. And I started a conversation with none other than Mr. Satish G. Parak, who was looking for a few relevant speakers then. Through our network, we could get 6 to 7 good speakers for that event. And you won't believe that one trip gave me so many friends, investors and partners as well for my company, and a platform for one of our first portfolio companies as well. And since the inception of GIF, I have been contributing in whatever small way I can. And I would insist the youth of Jito to be part of this platform. The power of this platform is really unimaginable according to me. So be part of this and participate into this. With this, I would like Mr. Manoj Mehta, who is one of the most dynamic chairman I have worked with, a friend and an amazing human being. Over to you, Manoj bhai.
Hey, thank you, Anup. That was too much of an introduction. I would thank everybody, especially Satish ji. नासिक जो जगह है ना, जो मतलब जैसे रायपुर में बहुत जगह हम स्टील के बिजनेस से आते हैं तो बोलते हैं रायपुर जो है कुबेर की नगरी है, वैसे नासिक जो है वो एक नॉलेज की नगरी है. स्पेसिफिकली Milind is a good friend of mine from Nasik, Satish ji, with whom I have started working on GIF. I got engaged with Jito because of GIF, and Satish bhai was the flag bearer of this initiative. Thank you, Satish ji, for giving me this opportunity. Also, maybe I don't know, but the chairman post was, I think, one of his brainchild to come to me. But I thank you so much. At GIF, we have already, I think Satish ji ने बहुत अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन दिया है हमारा GIF का काम हम कर ही रहे हैं करके. और last 2.5 years, we have invested almost like 42 crores, 40 crores. In this pandemic also, we have been working hard. In this pandemic, last 2 months, we have raised around 2 crores rupees in 3 companies. So I understand there is an, huge depression. There's a contraction happened, but last few weeks has been some toughest time. But one can be hopeful about the silver lining, which we'll feel. This may be a short-term problem, a short-term or a mid-term problem, but there looks like an long-term opportunity, which we all should look at it. And GIF is an alternative platform where this kind of ideas or initiative can be taken, where you can come on board, look at the company, invest, don't invest, but at least follow the company. You know the idea how the this paradigm shift is going to take place. That's why in one of our initiative now, we have got Shreyas to understand in a simpler way. We have heard a lot of things about artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, robotics, how in a simpler way, we in our business can adopt this and understand how in future, this is going to disrupt your business for sure. You're going to adopt or you're going to not adopt, but this is going to stay. So we need to understand that artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics are going to be a key part of all our business initiative future along. Thank you so much. I would like you to please give a good ear to Shreyas. He's been with NASA for last 4 years and he's been teaching those people there. So let us take something from him. Thank you, Anup.
Great. Over to you, Shreyans. Would just like again quick introduction on Shreyans, who is a researcher, technologist, consultant in the fields of AI and space technology. His lifelong ambition is to promote exploration of space and improve sustainable living on Earth. Currently, he works with NASA as a research scientist in California. He has received multiple awards for his contribution towards the future of Mars exploration and others. So all over to you, Shreyans, and we are looking forward for a fruitful discussion after this.
Thank you so much, Anup, and everyone for inviting me. I hope you can all hear me properly. If there's any problem with the audio, let me know.
No,
I
we are
will
good.
try to share my screen now. I have a presentation that I'll plan to use. Can somebody confirm if the presentation can be seen? Okay, great. So thank you so much again, Anup, and the entire team for the introduction and inviting me. I'm really excited to be here discussing with all of you some of the fun work that I do in my career, what I have done, what I have learned, and hopefully this will be exciting for you guys too. And some of you might be able to take some lessons out of how some of this work that I do in AI, robotics, and space exploration can be applicable to some of the work you guys be doing or you might be interested in doing. So let's get started. So what is AI? Hopefully some of you have heard the buzzword of AI around, unless you've been living in a cave. AI is really a word that's really hard to miss now, but for the sake of everybody's knowledge, let's start with what defining it. So artificial intelligence, or AI as it's popularly known, it's really called the new electricity. But in a very generic fashion, it's an umbrella term that refers to any computer system that can basically perceive its environment and make intelligent decisions, just like humans do with our brains. Before I get more into what machine learning and AI can do and how it works and how I use it, I want to start with some of the things AI is not. And those are usually the misconception that's around AI. The first one and the worst one is that humans are doomed, that we will be looking at in the future, in a few years, that AI will basically be creating super robots that's going to take over the world. This kind of thing is mostly just in the news, in the rumors, in the WhatsApp universities, but this is not really true. The next major rumor that I hear often is that robots will take away all our jobs. This is probably a deeply rooted one in all our emotions, because we all fear that AI is taking away some of our jobs and it will be affecting things. And this is what typically imagine when they look at how AI is going to behave when we look at it. When basically it will evolve more, it will take away all our jobs. But that's not really true for multiple reasons. The first being that AI is definitely not evolved yet enough that it can replace all humans. We are centuries away from AI being enough that it can replace the human intelligence that we have that has taken millions of years of development. And the second reason is that we are developing AI not to replace humans, but to augment it. And that's a very key thing. Be it from a business perspective or from any other idea, we really look at how AI can help humans and behave like a team and mostly take over jobs that humans are not good at. This is extremely crucial in times like this, what we see with the COVID situation now, that we really cannot do a lot of things that typically humans would be doing, especially the ones where...
Shreyas, just a request from couple of participants, little bit slow, so they'll be able to, follow properly.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yes, so one of the things that we have typically seen in the last couple of months is that the jobs that typical humans do, which make our lives dangerous in a coronavirus situation, can easily be offloaded to things like robots that could be taken care of. And that is the kind of things that I typically have been working on and looking at what are the jobs that typically are very dangerous for humans and how can we use robots to augment our capabilities. And I'm going to be discussing some of that. The third one is probably somewhat true, and it may not be as much of truth right now, but it will eventually become. And that's basically a thing of natural evolution, of how I see AI. It has taken millions of years for us to come from monkeys and chimpanzees to what we are today. And we are almost now evolving to a point where some parts of AI are almost embedded in us. Things like our mobile phones, they have made us much more intelligent than what people 20 years ago was. And going by that curve, we'll eventually become where AI and computers are part of our existence in a way that it's almost different to separate what an AI is and what a human is. This is still very far off, but this is possible, in my opinion. So having said what AI is not and what we are not going to be discussing about, let's talk a bit about what the hype of AI is and why everybody is now throwing AI to almost all their businesses and all their products. And even begin with, is this even a new thing? So if you guys, so a few keywords when you would be hearing of artificial intelligence is artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. These are typically very key buzzwords that are often thrown around, but they are not new. AI as it is began almost six to seven decades back in the 1950s during the World Wars. Uh, However, a key difference between why AI did not grow so much at that point and why it's growing now is the key difference from how AI was done was changed to now it's being done by what's now called machine learning and deep learning. We don't have to go into deep of what and how they work, but I'm just going to briefly explain the difference between what has changed. Previously, how things used to work is we had coders or programmers and software engineers who would basically be creating huge lines of codes and rules, and they would be putting this into a computer's brain. This is how Microsoft was originally formed. They would have big pieces of code that would be put in a computer system, and then you would tell the computer exactly what to do. Now, this has worked great for several decades and for a lot of things we did, but this still does not make the computer think on its own. It's basically following a set of rules. What changes is when we don't know how to define the rules. So this is where the key difference becomes of how AI needs machine learning. And when you think of, if you don't know the rules, how do you even write a piece of code that can allow that can allow the computer to actually do what it wants to do? A classic example of this that had basically, that was a big challenge for computer scientists for several decades was how can you teach a computer to play chess? And a major, and this is a great example because the human brain is so good at playing chess or other games which are so complex that if you start to write pieces of code for this would be several billion lines of code to even think of. But even otherwise, people don't even know how to write those several billion pieces of code to even start with. Because if I have to ask you to write down on a piece of paper how you play chess, how do you write your strategy? It's almost impossible for humans to do that. And the primary reason is we humans, we don't even understand our own brains of how it works. And that's one of the major reasons that the way we used to do programming or software engineering or computer science by writing rules or pieces of code just does not work. However, this changed in the late 1990s when machine learning started to evolve. And what machine learning is basically a paradigm shift between how computer science used to happen. And what the major shift was, rather than writing a piece of code and telling the computer what to do, we would basically we would let the computer tell us and figure out for its own what are the major rules. So as you see in the two figures here from between the left and the right is what machine learning is. And rather than giving it a piece of code, now we are giving it a piece of data. So this could be something as simple as email. So when an email comes to your inbox folder, how does the system know whether it's a spam or whether it's a legitimate email that you should be reading? It learns it based on your experience. How basically over the years, what Google and other companies have done is they have basically learned through user interaction that what you consider email and what you consider scam. And it has taught using machine learning a system and the computer to basically differentiate between the two. And this is at the very core, the major difference between how AI and programming and computer science used to happen and what we have today. And this has applied to basically every industry we know out there. And it's not something that's just in the news or it's something in science fiction. It's basically a revolution that's already happening and it's affecting every day of your life. A few examples that I have out here, starting from the top left of stock trading. If you are into investments or trading, a good fraction of the decisions is already done through predictive modeling. And what I mean by predictive modeling is basically machine learning that uses data from the past several years of how trading has been done and how investments have been done to make better decisions to how it can be done in the future. When you go to Netflix and want to see a movie, it has basically based on what you have seen before, it makes good recommendations for you to what you should be seeing next. And this is the same when you're trying to talk to Alexa or doing shopping on Amazon. These are basically at their core using all machine learning algorithms that that is allowing these really intelligent decisions and recommendations and making your life much simpler. While these are what I still call AI, these are not what I still call robotics. And a key thing that I want to explain now is the difference between how I see AI and how I see robotics or autonomous systems. And what I do is really within AI, I work on a subfield of AI that's called computer vision or autonomous systems, where I help robots understand what they see and make decisions on their own. So in the previous one, we saw things like Netflix. It's a very passive system. As opposed to that, when I talk about robotics or autonomous systems, what I mean is an active hardware system that can move around and do things. A few examples of this are the field of autonomous cars. If you have heard of the autopilot in Tesla, which can basically drive on its own, it uses things like computer vision, which is a part of machine learning, to make intelligent decisions like on the right you see, where it's being able to find what a car is, what a traffic sign is, and the same kind of things that when you are driving, you would be looking at the roads and making decisions. We are teaching those robots to make similar kind of decisions to what it can see around. Once it knows what it can see around, it can make and act accordingly. And this is a very critical part about AI and what has changed, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. Because if you think of how humans make decisions and behave and think or learn, 80% of that decision happens through what we see. Eyes make 80% of the sensory signals that we get to our brain. And that is the hardest, and that's actually the hardest thing to do, because humans do it so easily that we do not sometimes appreciate how hard this is to actually write down. Now think of the room around you. You might have a few chairs. You have a sofa, you have a bed. You can pretty much sit on all of them. If I ask you to define what a chair is, how would you define a chair versus a sofa and different from that? Can you really write down a mathematical equation to do that? Can you write down a description of what a chair is? Imagine all the thousands and millions of chairs that you have seen. It's almost impossible to write down what a chair is. And that is a very key thing, because that differentiates where you can make a rule about it and where you need data. For things that have a very definite thing, for example, the sun gets up on the east and goes down on the west, it's a rule, but you don't need data to define it. Whereas for things like this, which are so complex that even humans don't understand, we often need the data to tell us the rules. And this is where the key difference of machine learning and how it's helping us solve problems that humans have not been able to solve for several centuries is the key. On the bottom is another example, which is probably more common for you guys, is something that you have in your iPhone, is the face recognition. The moment it has been trained on millions and billions of data that the phone companies have collected through our data, and it's basically trained machines to learn what your face looks like, so that even it can unlock your phone or detect your faces in the photos. What I have done in my career so far, before NASA even, was applying that kind of AI to robotics. Having grown up, I was really excited. When I started college, I was very excited about how robots move, how some of these intelligent machines can think for themselves. I was very fascinated by the brain itself and how I can basically make these robots have the brains so that they can act for themselves just like humans do. A few examples that I have worked on, one that you see here on the left is a video of drones with intelligence that were basically applied for applications to construction. And,
I think Shreya, there's no screen. There's no screen. Have you uploaded anything?
Oh.
We can't see anything.
We can see it.
No, yeah, we can see it. Yeah, I think there's a problem with your screen, perhaps.
Is it? Okay, sorry. Continue then. Continue.
No worries. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, and then some of the other things I have. Basically, what I did was, growing up, I got very fascinated with robots that work underground, robots that work on the ground, air, on anything. And I started looking at different applications that can be used for drones like this, and how those applications, not just for making cool robots, but how can they also be applied to different industries that are commercially interesting and that can be made a good business. And that was my journey, that getting interested in robotics. Eventually, I ended up, having grown up in Kolkata, I basically did an undergrad at Manipal in India, in Karnataka, where I studied electrical engineering, spent a couple of years in Europe, eventually getting a master's in robotics before joining NASA. And through this journey, what I did was kept getting deep expertise into AI and kept learning new things that could help me make these AI system and robots more ready for the real world and making them application ready so that businesses and commercial companies can actually start using them. There was a major shift that has happened in the last few years where a lot of the activities that I showed you used to happen only at university labs, at professors and academia, to what is now really moving. And a lot of that work is happening into industry because industry has understood the value of how fast these things can impact business and revenue. So briefly, I'll go over some of the things that I do at NASA and how the vision of what I used to do for AI, what I was interested in developing intelligent brains for the robots, and how that can be impactful for space exploration. And this is a field that's I'm trying to pioneer with some of my colleagues, and it's not something that's done anywhere else. So again, I feel very lucky that after I was able to pursue my degree in robotics, NASA was probably the only place in the world which had two of the things that I'm interested in, space and AI. And it allowed me to actually pursue and make some disruption in this area. To give some background about what NASA does and how AI is even relevant to this. NASA is not interested in business or getting profit out of certain things, but it's really a science organization that works for the US government. And we are interested in answering some of the big goals for humanity. Things like, are we alone in the universe? How was the universe even formed? How did we get here? Some of the questions that humanity has been trying to answer for not just hundreds of years, but since humanity began itself, or since we started to think. My role within that was to figure out how AI can help answer these questions for NASA. And one of the first things I did after joining NASA was to help develop the strategic plan for the next decade for how NASA can basically invest in technology so that it can allow us to answer these questions, and especially how AI can help those technologies accelerate answering these questions. So some of you might be wondering why is this even important to NASA? Or why care? Because we've already been exploring a lot of the solar system. This is just a visualization of all the planets that are in our solar system, and some are outside it. And NASA has already, in the last 7 decades, made spacecraft that have visited all of these planets in some capacity. We've landed on the moon and we've explored Mars for almost 3 to 4 decades now, just for Mars, I mean. But one of the key things that was different and what was required in order for us to be able to do that was the human brain. On the left, we have the picture from the Apollo landing. And the key thing that allowed us to do that was the astronauts themselves. Without the ability of astronauts themselves being on board, we would not have been able to do that. On the right, you see the Curiosity Rover, which is right now exploring Mars for almost a decade now. And one of the ways it can do this is because there is a huge team of scientists and engineers, as you see on the bottom, in the mission control room at NASA that basically operates this. The way we operate our rovers and our robots is we give them sequences of instructions, pieces of code, and rules on how to behave and act. However, as this is not a scalable solution. Now, as we see the space age coming and as we see things moving, where we have basically several decades of things where we start to go very far off, we cannot give instructions and send signals, because even sending a signal to far away in the solar system can take hours. And also, as things start to scale and we start to have colonies on Mars, this is not a scalable solution where every human on Earth is trying to control a robot on Mars. So what we need is basically autonomy or AI. My focus in this, what I'll try to do here in the next few slides is to focus on the journey to Mars. This is what I joined NASA for. This is what I grew up dreaming of basically enabling some of the future Mars exploration. And this is what I've been trying to contribute my AI towards. One of the first examples of the kind of software and machine learning I developed for the Mars rover here is what you see on the left, is what we do something similar for self-driving cars here on Earth. One of the biggest challenges for the Mars rover is that it can get stuck in places like sand. Sand is really bad for, imagine driving on a very deep mud, and if your car gets stuck there, that's the same kind of problem that the Mars rovers can have if it's going in a sand dune. And if the rover right now, how we do it is a human basically does entire detailed planning to make sure we don't get the Mars rover stuck on this. We've already lost several $1 billion worth of rovers through that. And what we care about is to really avoid this. So one of the AI applications that I developed was what you see on the left, that allows using machine learning and through years of driving to help the rover predict for itself what are areas of the surface which are safe and which are not. So what you see in green are all areas which are sand dunes, which are very risky for the Mars rover to travel on themselves. Whereas what you see in blue are safe areas where the rover can go. These kinds of technology have actually been used back on Earth and are now being used for self-driving cars in California. What you see on the right is again something similar where we can identify different pieces of rocks, which are very interesting. It can use lasers to conduct scientific experiments on its own. The rover now behaves completely autonomously. It doesn't need a human to tell where it is. Another thing I worked on, which is another subfield of AI, is called virtual reality. We created a virtual reality AI system that basically allows us to transport humans to Mars, so that rather than having rovers send us things back to Earth, we can basically imagine ourselves if you are on Mars, and if you can now explore Mars by just putting on glasses. That will be a revolutionary difference where we don't have to risk our lives to actually go to Mars, but can do a lot of things just by having telepresence robots, or robots that could act like humans. Recently we used a very similar concept for coronavirus, where we basically had a robot that allowed virtual reality and go inside the hospital medical rooms and allow the doctors to be outside and still work with the patients directly. So that's just an example of, again, how we have been developing systems for space that have come back to Earth. Another good example I like to give is the phone cameras. The phone camera on every single one of you, the camera on your phone that every single one of you have right now was developed at NASA for space application, because we wanted to develop small cameras that can work in radiation environments. That has basically now become what every single people use in their everyday lives. Another very interesting thing that I have worked with that I would like to share with you quickly is the Mars helicopter. It's basically for the first time in for the first time ever, we will be sending a drone, an autonomous drone that's going to fly and work on its own to another planet. And this is going to be launching next month, in first week of July, basically from Kennedy Space Center, and reaching Mars early next year. And what it will be doing is it will be basically acting like a support system for the rover. Will be flying around Mars and sending pictures to the rover to almost behave like a scout. I developed the vision system, and again, the AI system that allows us to move on its own and travel. And yeah, this is the spacecraft assembly room where we develop, where we build all our spacecraft. So once we have we build the software, we put that onto the hardware, and once all pieces of the hardware have been put together, this is the spacecraft assembly room where everything comes together. This was a picture from January when we were trying to build together all of the spacecrafts. What you see in the middle is the Mars 2020 rover, and this is a close-up of that. This is the final rover. This is the rover in an almost complete construction before it was shipped to the Kennedy Space Center, and it's right now being put into the launch vehicle to be sent to Mars. I feel very lucky that I was able to build a piece of software that would eventually go to Mars and act on it. And this is a picture of the Mars helicopter, which I had shown you, and this is the flight-ready model of that will be flying on the surface of Mars next year, completely with AI. One last slide about what I do for Mars, and this is what the next couple of decades look like if you really start to think far off, and how robotics and AI can allow us to do things that we've not been able to do. A lot of the things and the science that we try to pursue here on things are interesting are on caves and underground areas. And we've been building robots with intelligence that can go and climb, just like a rock climber would be climbing surfaces on Earth. So that's for what we do for space exploration. But several times I mentioned that NASA is not just about space exploration, and 70% of what we do actually comes back, and we actually do for Earth applications here. And throughout our history, and especially recently, we've been developing a lot of ways and a lot of technologies, and we've been looking at how we can transfer and spin off those technologies back to Earth. Some of the good examples are agriculture. Through the Earth satellites, we have enabled immense growth of agriculture, and how we can have real-time updates to farmers, and they can be real-time updates on weather conditions to farmers. And using machine learning, they can exactly very accurately predict how and when it will be raining, when there will be a cyclone, when there will be a drought, and use those to make intelligent decisions about how they can better do farming. That's just one example of that. I told you about how we've been helping with COVID. So this is a ventilator system that was 3D printed from start to end. It took us 35 days to print and develop and get this certified to be used in an actual hospital with things. And this uses materials that were developed for Mars. This uses 3D printing technology that have been developed for Mars. And we've been, because of the way we have learned how to quickly develop these things, we were able to apply the same thing in response to national disasters like this. Another very good example of how we've been helping in coronavirus is some of the lessons that we've learned. NASA's astronauts have several decades of experience in living in isolation on the International Space Station. On the left, what you see is an analog station in Hawaii. So this is on the big island in Hawaii, and there is actually a analog site where we always have 4 to 6 astronauts that spend almost a year in isolation from anybody else on Earth. And the only communication that they have from Earth is, from anybody else is to people who are sitting on different parts of the planet and helping them communication. This has given us a lot of lessons learned on how we can operate, how we can behave, how we can act in situations of emergency. And that's allowing, and we've been sharing these lessons with the US government to act, how can we better act as a government entity in these situations. We've been helping develop commercial space industry and bringing a lot of this. And I just wanted to bring this out because I personally feel that the space industry is right now almost at the knee point of taking off. Next week is a historic moment for NASA, where for the first time ever in history, we will be launching basically a commercial company. SpaceX will be launching astronauts into space. This has never happened, and we are now, now what we can see is only a few years before we can start having space tourism and a huge business and $1 trillion industry around it. We've been helping with national security. This is something where I spend a lot of my time in. I've been working a lot with US government and other government agencies in developing ways in how robots, again, can support things which are extremely dangerous for humans to work in. So working in army, working on the front line, developing robots that can work in disaster situation, work underground in caves. These are exactly the kinds of technologies that we need right now. And thankfully that we've been developing these, we were able to use this for a lot of search and rescue situations, both for COVID, but also for other situations like the nuclear disasters that happened recently a few years ago, or any other natural disasters that happened. We've been looking at commercial technology transfers. This is a very interesting application that I worked on that I wanted to share with you. Is we have big partnerships with oil and gas companies like Chevron. And again, if you imagine how they typically work in, is using human divers and put human divers into deep sea oceans to do missions or maintenance missions. So what we came up with is how can we build robots like this that can go down into deep oceans and help these companies actually reduce the cost by almost 1,000 times in what it takes to do maintenance of these really expensive assets. This is what I want to spend a bit of my time on, is where I see some of the space robotics and what I have been talking about as the future. As I mentioned, AI is probably a buzzword that most of you would have heard, but if you have not, this is something that's impossible to not hear as you move forward. AI is already disrupting most of the industries, and it's going to be disrupting almost every industry that's out there. If you're not going to be using AI, you're probably, in my opinion, going to go outdated pretty soon. And what I have here is just some of the examples from what I see as the first movers in where we will be seeing AI. Automotive, we're already seeing self-driving cars in California. We have millions of miles of that have been driven much more safely by cars. And it's not just a cool thing to have, this is saving lives every day. If you imagine the number of traffic accidents we have with deaths, that is all that can be saved with using using self-driving cars. But in a situation like COVID and coronavirus, this would have been a perfect situation where we cannot use Uber, and when we don't want to use a lot of other commercial taxis or public transportation, we'd want to use things like this. Urban air mobility, flying cars, being a pilot myself, this is something very exciting to me. I would love to see a near future where AI can enable flying cars for us. Construction, I feel, is a fast mover where we've already seen a lot of action. most of the construction companies I talk to already use drones for their everyday application. Basically, across the whole life cycle of construction activities, we see that they are drones and some form of robotics and AI is already being used, starting from retail to supply chain to manufacturing. And especially for small businesses, a lot that has been done is on the area of customer relations, chatbots. Whenever you call a customer service and you have an automated robot talking to you, that's basically AI that's happening. All the manufacturing robots that you have, and medicine, we have come up with a lot of new vaccines because of this. I realize I'm running a bit late on time, so this is my last slide on this, and just wanted to finish with some of the challenges that I see. I've given a very optimistic picture about AI, how I have worked with AI and the development and everything that the whole future will be AI, but that's not without say that there aren't any challenges, and it's going to be an uphill battle before all the industries adopt this in a way that it's productive. One of the first key things that's going to be challenged for all of us as a community would be defining what the role of AI is. What are the kinds of jobs that humans will be good at, and what are the kind of jobs that we would want AI to be doing? And defining that would probably be one of the first things that the successful businesses would be doing. Ethics. Ethics is another big question, and this is probably a bigger question for the government agency. When you start thinking of flying cars, or when you start thinking of self-driving cars or robots moving around, if there is a tragedy because of that, or if a human gets killed, who do you blame? Those kinds of questions are big, and those kinds of questions we don't know answers to. So before we can start adopting at least robotics and autonomous systems into AI, into our world, we need to answer those questions. Safety and trust. A lot of what I defined was using machine learning, and those machine learning systems are not something we understand. And that's the whole nature of how they work. So basically, can we use these AI systems when we don't even know how they work? And the last one I feel is data. A lot of these AI companies where AI is adopted and works great is where we have a lot of data. Think of medical imaging or space. Those are places where we don't have a lot of data, or it's really hard to get good data. So machine learning and AI still struggles in places where we don't get data. And it's going to be a challenge for the whole community to figure out how do we solve problems for those. And with that, I'd like to end my discussion. Thank you so much for this, inviting me, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Wow, this is so inspirational, right? I think you made all of our Indians so proud, and moreover, all the Jains so proud by seeing all what you showed on the screen. It was truly amazing, right? So I think what we would like to know in general out here, most of the questions also coming around are around like how traditional businesses can look at AI, and should they look at AI, and how they can, what can be the starting point to implement AI, and what should be the way ahead. So there have been questions around how in agriculture we can use AI, how in traditional other businesses we can use. So just, and also you spoke about robotics, right? So also on Internet of Things, IoT, what does that mean going forward for the businesses, various ones? So just few general questions, and then Maheshji can take a few more questions.
Okay, so I guess the simplest way I can answer that question for the whole crowd would be, for all your businesses or all your objectives, think of what are the tasks that are repetitive. What are the tasks that if you have to do will be super boring for you? What are the kinds of, for example, if you're a farmer and if you just have to basically just take basically a big tractor and just keep driving around all day, or if you have to sow the seeds on your own, or if you're an accountant, if you have to basically do data entry, or if you have to do manual calculations, those are things that computers are great at. So one key way that small businesses can really start adopting AI is to understanding and introspecting for themselves that what are the things that can be easily done by computers today, and what are the things that humans don't really need to use your brains to do. It's mostly repetitive work that is being done, and those are things that we want AI to be doing. What humans are great at are things like design, of coming up with new ideas, coming up with art, coming up with creative business ideas, for another example. So those are things where you would not want AI to be doing. You'd want humans to be doing, probably law, probably making decisions for what is good and what is bad. Those are places we still don't want AI to be going. So That's a very generic answer. Of course, like how you can use it in your own businesses can vary a lot depending on what your scale of business is. If you're a purely software company, then you should start looking at what kind of data that you have and what kind of things that you can predict. If you're a trader, you probably make decisions based on your experience. Then what can you have, if you have data for that, can you make a machine do that kind of decisions for you? If you work with things which are dangerous for your life, that are dangerous for laborers, then can you put machines to that? So that's how I would go about thinking if I'm a small business.
And on the second one about the IoT and robotics, how do you see that playing forward for general businesses?
I actually, so I feel a lot of what I talked about was from the traditional definition of robotics. But as we move forward, a lot of what we think of robotics is the same as what AI or IoT is called in just different definitions. So I would almost call now we have, now you can go to the market and buy a fridge with a TV in it that can look inside, that can basically tell you what is inside, what kind of groceries you need to buy. That in my definition is IoT. So again, things like how small businesses can use this is using this in their everyday life of what you spend doing a lot of time. So for example, if you have assistants who basically do reservations for you, if you have assistants who are doing customer service for you, if you have assistants who are making bookings, accounting, those can all be very easily done with AI. So identifying things like this that you can basically be done, that are really not worth your time, those are what I would say start using IoT for that. And IoT, I feel, is a very, very huge area which will probably have the biggest impact in the next few years, in the near short term. Some of the things I defined in hardware robotics, they may take more time to get into the society. And that's just because anything which involves hardware typically takes more time to get into the society. But things like IoT, I feel, will be much more involved into everyday life of humans. So I see that really impacting both businesses and our everyday personal lives as well.
Over to you, Maheshji.
Yeah. Shriyans, excellent talk by you. What we want to know is from the youth side, what kind of education background does a student require to seek a career in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics? Should they be strong in maths, physics, or there is particular topic that need to be strong in?
Definitely, you need to be very strong in math, very strong in problem solving ability. But math is one of the things that probably keeps coming up, where most people jump into AI and machine learning, which sounds cool when you look at the application of it. But if you want to be a machine learning engineer yourself, after all the pictures, the first thing that comes is equations and equations of math and statistics and probability. So if you don't have very deep rooting interest and foundation in math, if you don't like problem solving, you're probably not going to be a good fit for machine learning kinds of technology. As an overview, what kind of course, what kind of majors help? Generally, robotics and AI, I think it's a pretty broad field now, so people come from all over. But engineering, especially in the areas of electrical, mechanical, if you want to be more involved with hardware. But right now, I would say 80% of the people come with a computer science degree. That's probably the most where people hire, where we hire from. So computer science would be the most easy route to get into machine learning. But the field is right now, I have colleagues who are majors in biology, physics, dance, music, who are doing AI. So there is pretty much no limits to where you come from.
All right, thanks. The second question is on behalf of startups or related to startups. Almost every third or second startup is saying that we use AI and ML for our upgrade, or that is the USP for us. So are there any benchmarks or parameters that we can check that will allow us to really understand whether they're using these technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So almost to the point where if I hear when I talk to a startup, if the first line they say that they are an AI company, I basically know that they are not an AI company. That's almost my bias on the way I interpret that, because almost it's become a fad that everybody just wants to label themselves as an AI company. Uh, how what I would look at is AI is not something that AI is not at a point that you can easily just pick up a piece of software and just say that you're running that and you're an AI company. But for differentiating factors, I would say one of the major problems with AI is when you take a piece of software that's already available and how do you make it work for your own application. So if you're a domain expert in your field, if you know medicine, then how do you really apply machine learning to medicine is key. So it's not as much about machine learning, it's not about medicine, it's about the interface of the two. So when I look at startups, I look at whether they are the right people who understand what are the right metrics for medicine that are important and how machine learning is helping solve those metrics. So it's almost at a second step that I look at how they are using AI becomes more important for me.
Fair enough. Third question is a little on the lighter side. आपने मिशन मंगल देखा है या नहीं देखा है अक्षय कुमार का?
देखा है।
आप भी मार्स पर काम कर रहे हैं एक्सप्लोरेशन पर और ये भी मार्स पर ही बनी हुई है, तो कुछ इंटरेक्शन हुआ था उनकी टीम और आपकी टीम के बीच?
मूवी के बारे में पता नहीं, मूवी का आई डोंट नो मूवी के लिए हुआ था कि नहीं इंटरेक्शन, बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट इसरो और नासा का इंटरेक्शन बहुत होता है. We have joint projects, we have collaboration, so there is a very healthy collaboration between ISRO and NASA, and that's a strange thing I've learned about aerospace industry, that all the rivals are also the competitors are also the friends. So NASA and SpaceX are rivals, yet they are colleagues. Boeing and SpaceX are rivals, yet they are colleagues. So it's a very small community. So basically, everybody works together with each other.
Sure. ठीक है. One more question from the business community, क्योंकि हमारा जीतो पूरा business community related है. Many of them are from traditional backgrounds like jewelry, textile, farming. So the question is, how can AI, ML, etc. could be used for proper decision making, for right procurement, for improving sales, for automating processes? Can you give some tips on that?
Sure, I can give tips based on what I have seen. I mean, again, I keep repeating this that अगर आप domain expert हो, आप probably मेरे से better figure out कर सकते हो कि कहाँ use हो सकता है. But for example, last year जब मैं इंडिया में था, I saw a jewelry shop or a वहाँ पे. So one of the things instantly comes is a lot of people are manually looking at, for example, each piece of jewelry to figure out whether it's real or not, whether what's the quality of that. This is something experts are very good at, figuring out, just looking at a diamond and figuring out what the value should be or what are how it should be. Those are things that can be automated. दुनिया में आज तक जितने diamonds हैं, सबका value और सबके pictures मेरे को लाके दीजिए. I can make a model for you that basically tells you diamond को देख के कितना उसका value होना चाहिए. Trying to do precision manufacturing, like जहाँ पे भी आप human labors को use करके कोई भी चीज construct कर रहे हो, वो सब चीज machines कर सकती है आपके लिए. You don't need expertise for that. Art के लिए may be different. So for example, if you're coming up with a new design for a jewelry, वहाँ पे नहीं use होगा. वहाँ पे, at least till now, it's better to use a human to do it because you're using creative side. Whereas for anything which can be done by labor, you can replace it.
Fair enough. So one last question from my side related to NASA. There are a lot of exchange programs happening between Jaina, JITO, many schools in India dealing with NASA. Can we have a program for Jain students or Jain people from, say, represented by JITO, and you taking initiative for NASA?
Yes, that can definitely be done. So I can definitely enable that, and we can have a conversation of, there's a lot of channels through which we can enable collaboration because one of the major, so NASA का एक सबसे बड़ा goal है education. So even before space exploration, what we try to do is how to promote science, technology, education. So anything to do with students, anything to do with building collaboration and promoting interest in science and technology, NASA is really first for that. So we can start a discussion after this.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much, Shreyans.
Can I
Anup, back
just
to you.
ask, Anup, can I just ask one question, please? With your permission, Anup. Shreyas,
Sure, Manoj bhai, go ahead.
Yes.
Shreyas, AI, robotics, or machine learning, how much is the adaptation rate today, as on today, in US or in India, comparatively, and how this is going to adapt in terms of multiplication next 5 years or 3 years or 10 years down the line? How are we going to be?
Okay, so उसके लिए I would point everybody to something I like to see as there's a very popular graph called the Gartner hype cycle. So it's typically basically that's what one thing I have seen a lot of success looking at that. It's hard to say where AI is on that cycle, but from my 2 cents, I feel there is a lot of hype around AI right now. And there is a difference between what the investors think AI can deliver, what technologists and engineers and scientists think AI can do, and what the businesses claim that AI can make for themselves. There is a huge difference between that. And this is the problem why bubbles burst. And this is not the first time AI has become hyped. We have had 3 AI winters before this. And one of the key ways that AI does not get hyped is also, it's a mutual work where we need to make sure that AI जो expectation है वो सही रहे, because अगर वो नहीं होगा तो क्या it will take several decades for AI adoption to work. But अगर look, if there is a right expectation of what AI can do, it's being put into the right places जहाँ AI is actually useful, then we can start seeing a lot of adoption very quickly. That's one answer, but the second answer, it's because the way AI is, it's almost changing the way our society is. It's not so much just about business and industry, it's about how governments also do it. So unless there are right government policies, right government regulations to support it, it's going to be really hard. So it's also a job for each government to make sure that AI is adopted the right way.
Anup?
Sure, thank you. Shreyans, one last one from the investor perspective. I want to ask a question more on future technologies, right? Today we are hearing after AI, we are talking about quantum computing, etc. So in simple terms, what does that mean? And, does it really make sense to invest in concepts which are supporting quantum computing, others at this point in time? What would be your recommendation on those lines?
So I think it depends slightly on what the goal of the investment is. If it's a short-term goal, may or may not be, maybe not on the short term. But as I'm a technologist, so basically I believe not in delta changes. So I don't like if there is a Uber and then there is a Ola and then there is something else. What I like to see is disruptive technologies like AI, cryptocurrencies, or quantum computing. So basically those kinds of technologies which have a huge delta, which almost gives a 10-time performance. So if you're looking for investments, if you're looking for long-term investments in terms of what are the kinds of areas that you should be investing your business into, what would be there, what would be the thing, what would be the big things from now, those would be places I would be investing in. If you're looking for quick turnaround, maybe not. Not for quantum computing. AI, I think certain parts of AI are already where you can get a lot of revenue, a lot of benefits by just using AI. So AI, I have a different answer. Quantum computing, I have a different answer.
Sure, thank you so much. One last thing from your side for the youth, for the businesses, for all of us, how do we embrace technology, innovation in our businesses and how important it is? Anything you want to go on?
I would say understand your business. So you have been, understand your business, which obviously you guys, everybody who's here, they are experts at their businesses. They're champions at it, but also look at it from a different perspective. I think the way businesses change and adapt is people have been doing certain thing a particular way. There is a cycle that's been moving for decades, but think very deeply about what are the things you have been not doing in your business that can really be changed. Or very simply just look at what are the things that have not changed in your business for the last 5 to 10 years. And if it has not changed at all, and you've been doing the same thing you were doing 10 years back, then there is a way that could be changed now. So, and then another challenge right now is obviously the misinformation. So that one is a hard one. Everybody, as you said, is AI. Every startup is AI right now. Everybody's trying to sell the hype AI. So you will need to educate yourself a bit on AI to understand the difference between what's noise and what's a signal. Even like when I'm hiring students or getting interns, 90% of the resumes I see have machine learning and AI on them. It's a challenge to figure out who are the people who have the right experience versus who don't. So it only comes with experience. So getting a bit of knowledge into machine learning and AI, if you really want to invest into it, would also help.
Great. Thank you so much. That was so inspiring once again, and thanking you for that.
Thank you so much. This was a great session. I'm very excited and to share all this with you and learn from you.
Still a lot of questions are still coming. So what we're going to do is we'll amalgamate all the questions and maybe send an email to you. And at your leisure and what you feel comfortable, you can probably reply back and we'll send it across to the respective people.
Yes, please do that. I'll be happy to. So I had my email at the last slide, but if you guys could not get it, you can probably get it from the Jito here, and I'm happy to reach out.
Will it be possible to share this presentation if it is not confidential, or it could benefit all our audiences?
I will try to. I'll have to get a few clearances to do that. So I'll try to get it and I'll follow up on it.
Thank you so much. This will be now followed up with a couple of startup pitches, Shreyans, if you want to stick around and just see them. Just for the benefit of all the viewers, we're going to have the next session on 13 June, motivational speaker. So it's going to be a session at these times we all look forward to from Swami Gyanavatsal. So please block your calendars. We will be sending you invites for the same. So now, yeah, I think we are pretty much done with Shreyans's session, and we can go ahead with the startup pitches. Do we have anything else to cover up, Manoj Bhai? Anything else we missed?
No, thank you so much, Shreyans. We have a lot of participants from Kolkata also. There is Narendra Shamshuka, there is Rajesh Jain, who's been also writing a lot of things on Jainism, on artificial intelligence. So these are all your hometown. They are really super excited, and we are really happy to have you on this platform, Shreyas. We would be bothering you again for future, because this was really inspiring, and to know our Jito brother there, a Jain brother in NASA, with having such a deep knowledge and doing some deep technology. This is really inspiring. Thank you for giving us time. Thank you.
Thank
Anup,
you so much for inviting me, and thank you. This was definitely a great experience.
So I think we should get started with the next investment pitch session. Akash, if you can just activate me.
Well, sir, you have the access. We have Revati with ADD on the call with us.
Okay. So what we'll just give a brief introduction for all the people who are sticking with us, requesting you to please continue with us for another 45-50 minutes. We are running late by about 10 to 15 minutes, but I think we'll cover as we go along. So I, Mahesh Jain, Vice Chairman on behalf of Jito Incubation and Innovation Foundation, welcome all the investors and potential investors to this JIF investment pitch. Briefly, I'll tell you, JIF is divided into 3 parts: the incubation center, the Jito Angel Network, and a co-working space platform. So this investment pitch is under the Jito Angel Network. We have 2 startups pitching today. First will be Hey Didi. It's into logistics vertical. It's an all-women workforce of 4-wheelers and 2-wheelers doing parcel delivery service. And Miss Revati is the founder of this particular startup. On a special note, I would like to inform you that John Abraham, the actor, is doing a live story on Miss Revati. So maybe that will attract you to stay with us and listen to the story and the investment pitch. So over to Revati of Hey Didi. Akash, Revati.
Revati is mute, I guess.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to pitch here. And I had tuned in when Shreyans was speaking, and I think straight from space, we are coming to the ground because I am on the ground, and I mean, it's a logistics field which is actually doing work on the ground. So, is somebody going to put up the presentation there, or shall I speak first? And yeah.
Oh, we can do those simultaneously.
Yeah, okay. So, I'd like to give a little background about what we do and why this thing was started. It's got a little personal story to it. I'll keep it very short as to how I came into this. So professionally, much before I started a lot of different companies. I started a couple of companies. I am a professional rally driver. So driving is my passion, has been my passion. And I have done about 85 car rallies, 180 of them. So primarily, driving really drives me. I mean, I see a car and get excited. So it was always in my blood. But it was an unfortunate incident that I lost my husband, and I had no job and I had no money. So I decided to actually become a cab driver. And I started my first ever women cab driven company called Forshi way back in 2007, and became Asia's first women cab service driven by women for women only. Gradually, after Ola and Uber came into the fray, we knew that it was not possible to do any price. We couldn't, do price wars with them. So not being able to do any price wars with them, we decided that it's better to move into logistics. So 2016, I started Asia. This is the first all-women logistics company where we are doing, deliveries for last mile delivery for e-com companies. And the demand is humongous. I mean, it is not even funny as to how huge this demand is. So let me take you slide by slide on this, where we are saying that Hey Didi is typically the name, as the name suggests, it's Hey Didi. I mean, we are calling all the girls sisters. And so we started this in 2016 and launched the first two-wheeler service. Very soon we realized that it's something which can move on to four-wheelers as well. So as an introduction to Hey Didi, as the slide shows, we started we realized that if we want to grow this company, we do not have the luxury of actually picking up people or poaching people from any other company. It was not possible because nobody is building a pool of women riders or women drivers. And I was the only one who was doing women drivers, which was four-wheeler drivers. So we had to actually at the back end build a skilling company where we started skilling girls to become riders. And we also found that in two-tier cities, it was going to be much better because two-tier cities are normally tier cities are two-wheeler cities as well. So we started with, skilling them, and we realized very soon that even international companies like Amazon, Flipkart, all these e-com companies were extremely keen on taking girls. And very soon we also realized as to why they were very keen, because what they told us was simply that the escalation problems of whether it is cash in hand, whether it is cash collection, all of these are not are very easy to deal with when there's a woman doing the job. And it was amazing how we started, because we started with one girl and today we are spread across 10 cities. We're training girls across all these 10 cities, and actually we are creating jobs. So I think it was something which was a much needed category. And also when Niti Aayog, awarded me with the Niti Aayog award, it actually went to a national level where people started recognizing the concept of women drivers and women riders. So fundamentally, we are creating jobs for girls from the lowest end of the pyramid, and we are making them financially empowered. I am not an NGO. I'm a totally for-profit company. I am a totally, one second, somebody is saying that I have to stop the video. Okay, I have stopped the video now, so I think it's a better reception and better audio. So the presence of the company is in, like you see on all in this in the slide, that we are on. We started with Bangalore. We started with Mumbai and Bangalore. And Bangalore, actually, we got invited by Amazon to say that why don't you come and why don't you come and deliver things to us within an IT park. And at that point of time, we really didn't have money to buy two-wheelers. So I bought them bicycles, because inside the IT park, it was really possible for everybody to go and deliver within a range of about 1.5 to 2 kilometers. So that's how we started in Bangalore. We started in Mumbai. We moved to Pune. We are in a very small way in Nasik also. Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Nagpur, Jamshedpur, Ranchi. We started Lucknow. Oh, somebody says it was for the co-host. Okay. Yeah, I started the video. So this is how we started, and I think we are doing phenomenally well in terms of attracting these girls to the to come and join the workforce. And they've all started earning north of 15,000 rupees. These girls are all from the below poverty line, and it is a tremendous feat and achievement to see that they have come out of below poverty line. The entire families have come out of the below poverty line because they are working with us. Can I have the next slide? Okay, so typically what happens is that we have skilled so many people, so many homes are impacted, the families, there are so many, these are just statistics. In the first 2 years, what we realized was that it is easy to get girls to come and ask them to skill themselves, because there is some kind of achievement when they actually get a license on their name. But we also realize that these are not the girls who are wanting to come and work with us or work anywhere. In fact, that is also a problem. While we talk in a very big way about unemployment, it is equally true that even if you are providing jobs, it is not easy to have not just women, even boys. It is not easy to get them to come and work. So I very strongly believe that it is not something which is easy to get people to come and work. A lot of people look for just freebies, and that's not the business that we are in, because we are purely wanting to skill them and make sure that they come and work with us. Next slide. So these are just visuals of what you'd see of what our girls look like. I mean, we all are dressed like, like you normally see an Amazon Flipkart person. And these are two-wheelers. What you see, these two-wheelers, we have tied up with a couple of finance companies where we don't stand as guarantors, but when we give them an offer letter, the girls are able to get two-wheelers on their names, and the EMI is directly paid from their, we don't stand as guarantors at all. So these are just visuals of what you see of how our logos look like, how our two-wheelers look like. We have four-wheelers in the background that you see. And this is the branding that we do. And it's really well accepted, and they feel very proud to wear the uniform that they wear. Okay, so the bigger impact in the lives of ADP, as you see, is that, they become an owner of an asset. Once she starts earning in the house, her status in the house completely changes, completely. It is a mother-in-law who would have been probably cursing her earlier, but because she takes the check back home, her own status there improves, because the mother-in-law actually starts giving her a dabba in her hand. And this is really true. This may sound very, very trivial as I am talking, but actually these are life-changing episodes in their families, in their homes. And I have seen a huge amount of self-respect and self-esteem coming into these girls, which is why they are able to come out and work. And one of the bigger things that I have seen is that, which you see, the last thing that I've written, better education for the children. A lot of these girls have started, right from the time I have been working 2007, they have started telling me that, ma'am, I want to send my child for tuition classes. Now, this is something which is which they had never dreamt of that their children would go for tuition classes. And it's just merely as an empowering company, as an empowering job, we are able to do that for them. And it is amazing. This month, during COVID times, 2 of my girls have earned north of 30,000 rupees. We have not stopped work we had stopped work only for 2 days, even after being in Bombay. So, I'll tell you the COVID impact after the last slide. So this is just, and I think you can share this PPT with whoever wants to see it, because these are just numbers. We can go to the next slide. So this is about me. Pioneered the first ever women taxi service. You can see it on the screen. All these awards and all, they're just good to see, and I feel happy about it, but they don't add to the numbers. So it's just there, and I'm happy to have it. Next slide. Yeah, so we have skilled these many girls. We are impacting so many lives, and the numbers can just go on and on if we, if we get the right kind of support, we can do what we are doing. Next. That's it. I have a short presentation. I'm happy to answer. I think I'm more happy to answer whatever. Okay, this is the biopic. There's a book written on me. It's an authorized biography, which is being converted to a biopic now. And I don't know who's playing my role, but John is producing it and co-directing it with Robbie Grewal. I don't know anything more about it, but it was supposed to start shoot now, but I think everything is postponed for a couple of months now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Revati. Just about a little bit more on the business side, I think if you can just give a little bit more insight on the business side, I think that will be more relevant.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Mahesh, you want to take it?
Yeah. Can you hear me, Revati, now? Revati?
I can hear you, Mahesh.
Yeah.
But I think Revati can't hear, I guess.
I think we all can hear you. I think Revati has got something with the audio. I think we can hear you.
Can somebody call Revati and then ask her to come back online?
She's online. She's online, but I don't think she can hear us.
Yeah, that's why I think we need to call her.
Tab tak, Mahesh
Very lightly I can hear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
On the valuation part, Mahesh bhai, can you just tell everybody's asking on the valuation and the raise and the ask?
My connection is fine.
Yeah. Revati, can you explain more? You're not here. What is the ask and what is the valuation?
Pardon?
What are we asking and what is the valuation?
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yeah, we are able to hear you.
Okay, I can't hear you all much. Okay, so let me answer. So we are asking for about 1.5 crores. About 1.5 crores at a valuation of 15 to 17 crores.
So 1.5 crores at 15 to 17 crores valuation. So there are a few more questions on the chat. Can you check the chat?
Shall I just shut it and join back?
Can you check the chat and then come back to us?
I can't hear much. I don't know why.
So I think we can take the next page and maybe we can join back, and then if we have time, we can take the questions again.
Fair enough. Again, for the people who are online, that was Hey Didi, a logistic vertical company startup, all women workforce of 4-wheelers and 2-wheelers. Note that Jito Angel Network, that is Jan, has invested so far about 42 crores upwards in about 21 startups. What we do is we do curation on the startups and we bring it in front of all the JAN members. It's a new asset class that we look at for our GTO members and JAN members in particular. So going to the next startup of the day, it's called Green Cure Wellness. It's in the health tech. Their tagline is German engineering meeting Indian Ayurvedic. About 15 plus patents filed, and the founder Sanchit Garg will be presenting the opportunity. So requesting all the members to please listen to the investment opportunity and contact us with your queries and concerns. So over to Sanchit.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for taking out time on a Saturday afternoon. And thank you, Maheshji, for the wonderful introduction.
Sure.
I'll share my deck. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we're able to see it.
Perfect. So as Maheshji said, with Green Cure Wellness, we are trying to create a global brand in the herbal and Ayurvedic space in the OTC or over-the-counter medicinal segment. So before I get into the Green Cure side of things, I would want to share a very small story of how we got into existence. So the idea actually happened 5 years ago. My father was traveling to Germany for a business trip. And since childhood, he has been an asthmatic. So he always carried an asthma inhaler with him. And unfortunately, on this trip to Germany, he forgot to carry one. And he got an asthma tag there. So he was breathing very improperly. He rushed to a pharmacy. He said that I am having an issue in breathing. Just give me something for my asthma. So then that person gave him a syrup, which was a bit counterintuitive because asthma is a lungs problem. So what would a syrup do? But then he thought, Germany hai, Angrez log hai, kuch to pata hi hoga. So he took that syrup. After 5 minutes, he started feeling very relaxed. And I'm a third generation entrepreneur. So I think entrepreneurs are very curious by nature. My father is an entrepreneur as well. So he started asking that person some questions. What is there in the syrup? What's the composition and all? And that person told him that this is a completely herbal syrup, which sort of blew his mind. In fact, for the next 1 year, we used to import that syrup, especially from Germany to India for him in cartons. And that is where my interest into the herbal or the Ayurveda sector sort of got into. So we spent about 2.5 years in trying to understand what is herbal, what is Ayurveda, what's the difference. And we got some very, very unique yet very simple insights. So essentially, herbal and Ayurveda mean the same thing, which is plant-based medicinal formulations. The difference is that Ayurveda, which is an Eastern or an Indian term, is derived from a 4,000-year-old knowledge. And Ayurveda essentially talks about ingredients which we either consume or apply. So you must have heard of multani mitti.
Tracking a lot. Can you just see how it can be better?
Just give me a second.
Maybe you can switch off your video. That could work.
Yeah, if everybody can switch off the video, then we'll have a more better streaming.
Can you check? Is this better now?
Yes, it's better now.
I can hear, yes.
So let me start again then. I would just take a minute to quickly talk about the story. So yeah, as I was saying that my father has been an asthmatic since childhood. And he had this incident in Germany wherein he forgot to carry his asthma inhaler and he found this herbal syrup for asthma, which he had never seen before in his 40 years of battling asthma. And it really blew his mind away. And that is where the interest into the herbal or the Ayurveda sector sort of got me interested. And we explored this, what is herbal, what is Ayurveda for the next 2.5 years. And we got some very interesting insights. So essentially herbal and Ayurveda mean very similar things. Both of them mean plant-based medicinal formulations. The difference is that on the herbal or the Indian side, the focus is always around ingredients, which we either consume or apply. So things like haldi ka doodh, multani mitti, it's always about an ingredient. Whereas on the herbal or the Western side, besides focusing on the ingredient, they also focus on two things. Firstly, how to increase the efficacy of already present ingredients. And second, how to formulate the product in a very safe way. That is, how to use very high quality preservatives and base ingredients. And that is where the initial idea of Green Cure got into us. I'll quickly share how we actually leveraged both these two things. Before going into that, let me share what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So it's a very, very simple problem. May that be the East, may that be the West, everyone is looking for safe products right now. There is a hidden customer need that they're looking for safe products, no doubt, but they want it to be as good as non-naturals or unsafe products. And while they're looking for naturals, they're perceiving them to be side effect free. They're perceiving them to be safer for the environment. Currently, the problem is if you're going in the naturals or the herbal side, the safety is there, but the efficacy is not. And if you're going at the non-naturals or the allopathic side, then the efficacy is there and safety is not. So this is the gap that we're trying to bridge. And how are we solving this? So essentially, as I mentioned, we saw Germany or the herbal side as one pillar of knowledge and Indian Ayurveda as the other side, other pillar of knowledge. We realized that these two sciences are very complementary to each other, and what will happen if we combine them? So essentially, after 2.5 years of research, we established a team of scientists based out of Germany who collaborate with an Ayurveda expert here in India to create our completely unique formulations. And we have also applied for patents for our products. So once we got the idea right, there were three categories where a company like Green Care could have played in. First is over-the-counter medicinal space. Second is facial care or skincare space. And third is baby care space. So we thought, firstly, a lot of startups, a lot of herbal companies are focusing on baby, facial, personal care, and cosmetics. But I would say less than 1% of them are focusing on the medicinal side of things. Secondly, we spent 2.5 years to understand the efficacy to make a very high quality product. What better way to give medicine to the consumer so that they can see the efficacy of the product? And that is why the focus is on the $90 billion global OTC market. Out of that, $11 billion is the herbal OTC market. So two things we noted in terms of the competitors. So on the left side, you'll see top three sectors in the OTC market: analgesics, which is pain relief; derma, which is skin; and cough, cold, and allergy. So first is that within categories, top 5 players are non-herbal in most of these categories. So we saw, despite being a very high market size, there is no herbal brand which is dominating the category. Second, even within categories, one brand which is dominating in one category is not dominating in the other category. And that is where we saw there is huge fragmentation across and within categories. And that is where we saw a scope of a global brand to be created. Within OTC also, we are trying to target chronic ailments which do not have a herbal alternative. So our current product line is in the analgesics or the pain relief space. We are there in the cough, cold, and allergy space. We are there in the derma space and the wound care space. So getting some learnings of our flagship product, which is BronchiCure, India's first herbal lung care syrup for asthma and bronchitis. What we saw is that if we try to target chronic ailments, there are two things which are happening. Firstly, typically people do not use herbal products for chronic ailments. They get very curious and very excited when they look at such products. Second, since the ailment is chronic in nature, then there is a huge repeatability and lifetime value associated with that product. So similarly, we are trying to venture into other categories like sleep aid, digestive health, weight management, liver, cholesterol, hypertension, etc. To talk about the founding team, so there is me, Sanchit, you're talking to. I had quite a good set of hair at that time when I clicked the photo. So I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta. Post that, I started working with the Boston Consulting Group as a consultant. I did 3 projects there in total across 3 separate domains and 3 separate verticals, and then decided to start Green Cure Wellness. My chief of operations is Mr. Sanjeev Datij. He has 23 years of experience in business development and operations, supply chain certification from IIM Calcutta. On the R&D side, on the Ayurveda side, we have Dr. Poonam Ashish. She's a PhD in herbal medicines, 20 years of experience in this space, both in the Ayurveda formulation and Ayurvedic production side. On the Western or the German side, we have Dr. Schwab, again a PhD, 30 years of experience. He has been a technical director for 15 years for a major European health and wellness company. And 5 years ago, he started his own independent lab. He holds various patents and various top-notch awards for his work. To talk about the go-to-market strategy, So essentially, we looked at a lot of brands and saw the biggest driver of some of the brands in other categories like personal care, cosmetics, etc. is two things. First is targeting, second is distribution. So a lot of these brands give very high quality products through good USPs like herbal, natural, or safe products. They targeted millennials, which is typically people who are between 25 to 38 years of age, who are educated, who can buy products online, and who have that extra purchasing power, and then marketed their products solely through online and had e-commerce as their biggest driver. So we realized a lot of these companies have grown well over the past 5 years in other categories. Why not in the OTC category? Thereby making Green Care Wellness the first digital first brand in the OTC segment. And that is a major of our go-to-market strategy. So the idea is up to a 2 to 2.5 CR run rate will be a digital first brand. After that, of course, we'll start expanding into the offline side of things, that is general trade, modern trade, and other types, strategic types with other companies. Besides the online segment, we have a B2B e-commerce or an offline sort of a distribution, wherein we get directly in touch with Ayurvedic doctors, pharmacies, and small distributors. There is no manpower. We have our own calling executive in-house. There is no middleman. We get leads of these people through digital mediums and then service these orders either through cash on delivery or through prepayment. To talk about our growth, Feb 2020 figures were 27.2 lakhs. We had been growing 20% month on month over the last 5 to 6 months with very similar marketing spends. As you can see, 80% typically is where our online sales and 20% is our offline sales. To talk about our unit economics, we are operating at a 60% gross profit. So if I break this down, let's say a 100 rupee product, 15 rupees is the landed cost of production. So it takes 15 rupees to create the product, package it, and land it to my own warehouse, and roughly 25 rupees for outward distribution. That is marketplace margins, retailer margins, shipping cost, payment gateway charges, etc. At a 5x scale, we are projecting a 33% decrease in the cost of production. To talk about our current fund ask, we are expecting a 1.5 minimum of 1.5 crores to help us over the next 9 to 12 months. So there is an update that I have on this. So we already have received commitments for 1.5 CR minimum from Venture Catalyst, and we are planning to raise this fund to around 3 crores. The idea of fund allocation is to spend about 55% on marketing and about 20% on new product development. So 3 product categories that we're really excited about in the future. First is the sleep aids category. This category we feel is set to explode in India, and there is absolutely no competition on the herbal side of things. Second category is the liver category. Again, the lifestyle which a lot of us indulge in, liver is where it takes a big toll in. And third is an immunity booster, given the current times we live in. To talk about the projected increase, so the projected sale projection for a 1.5 CR fundraise is that we'll project a 75 lakh run rate in the next 9 months, post which we'll raise a much larger, probably an institutional VC sort of a fund. Given that we are increasing our round now, so at a 3 CR sort of a fundraise, we are projecting a 1.3 INR sort of a monthly run rate. Again, case in point that I wanted to present, Bronchi Cure, which is our flagship product. We have started seeing very huge lifetime value for our products. To give you an example, if you refer to the bottom right side of the slide, first-time consumers consume 1.7 units on an average. Repeat consumers consume 5.2 units on an average. That's more than 1,500 rupees in lifetime value. We are trying to target similar chronic ailments which have a huge lifetime value to the consumer. Let me address the elephant in the room, how we are set to do in a post-COVID environment. So let me address this from 3 perspectives. First is a demand side perspective, second is supply side, and third is connecting the demand from the supply. So from a demand side perspective, from day one, we have been operational. Just 2 days we could not. We come under the essentials category. And that is the idea for Green Care Wellness, to create a very recession-proof, resilient sort of a product range, which is under the chronic ailments or the OTC category. To talk about the supply side, so given our European sort of roots, a lot of our actives are also imported from all over Europe and the States. In December, we sort of foresaw that maybe coronavirus might become something global. And thankfully, we imported about 6 months of actives. So we are good to go for the next 6 to 7 months. And In fact, some of our actives, their prices have tripled as well. So we got saved from that. In terms of addressing the demand to the supply, that is the logistics, there are still logistical issues which all companies right from mine to an Amazon, Flipkart are facing. But every day we are seeing improvement, and hopefully by the end of next month, things should be completely normal. So this is it from my side. To talk about the valuation and a bit into that side of things. So from Venture Catalyst, we have signed the term sheet, and we'll sign the SHA as well in a couple of days. Our due diligence has been done. The valuation we have gotten from them is 19.9 crores. That is pre-money valuation. At whatever fund we are raising, we are expecting a 2 CR from Venture Catalyst, and then whatever we can get from Jito, we'll be happy to add them as co-investors. So besides this, we also have a clause of a reverse clawback, which says that there are certain revenue milestones that we need to achieve. If we do not, then the valuation will decrease by 25%. So yeah, this is it from my side. I would invite questions now. Thank you.
Maheshji, you're mute.
Yeah, Sanchit, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah, there are some questions that have come over the chat. How would you compete with companies like Patanjali, Sri Ayur, Herbalife?
So
what differentiates you?
Let me try to address this question by Anumam ji from three perspectives. First is the product focus, second is positioning, and third is distribution. So if you look at the product focus for Green Cure, we are entirely focusing on the OTC medicinal space. Whereas a company like Patanjali, it's doing everything, which I feel is all over the place. Whereas other companies like Sri or Ayur are mostly into the supplements or the food side of things, which we are not currently focusing on. To talk about the positioning, again, we are trying to replicate this playbook that through which a lot of D2C brands have grown over the last 5 years, which is a slightly premium positioning, a mass premium positioning, where we target millennials who drive our initial set of purchases, whereas a brand like Patanjali or Ayur are typically very mass in nature. To talk about the go-to market, again, this complements the positioning. These established companies are pioneers in offline distribution. There is no doubt about this. But we see digital, both from an advertising and a distribution perspective, as a very, very low-hanging fruit for any brand to grow. Since these are very established players, they neither have the bandwidth, nor I would say the inclination to really go after the online space. So typically they have 5 to 10% of their spends as online, whereas I have 100%. And the biggest problem and the thesis of why startups exist is that big companies typically throw money at problems, whereas startups throw their life and soul on it. And that is how startups always grow. So I think these three are major differentiators between any other player in the market. I'll start addressing the questions on the chat now. There's a question by Khushbuji. How much money have you invested in the company already? Is it owned in partnership? So we have invested about 4.3 CR of our own money into the company. So as I said, I'm a third generation entrepreneur. My father and my grandfather, you can say, are my first angel investors. So they invested in the company and then they gifted the shares to me. So this is a private limited company, and all of these shares are owned by me. For practical purposes, my younger brother has 40% shareholding, but that's just a shareholder. That's just a placeholder. To address the question by Patni ji, total sales today, that is of May, we are still facing logistical challenges. We are not able to service cash on delivery orders, which is a major driver for e-commerce. Because of this, our current May sales are somewhere around 10 lakhs. Future projection for sales is that in the next 6 months, that is next 6 months from Money in the Bank, we are projecting a 70 lakh monthly sale. And in the next 1.5 years, we are projecting a 1 to 1.3 crores of monthly sales. As mentioned by Khushbuji, yes. So you're completely right. We're trying to use a blue ocean strategy, wherein instead of competing directly with players where there's a lot of competition, we're trying to find niches and pockets where there are absolutely no players and then completely dominate that sector. To answer the question by Patni ji, does your distribution network include dealer, wholesaler, retailers, or only online? So 80% comes from online, which is a mix of both my website and marketplaces. 40% is my own website. The rest offline piece, there is no wholesaler, there is no dealer. We directly distribute our products through doctors and small retailers. So the reason for that is that to have a proper distribution, I need to have manpower, I need to give margins to everyone, I need to invest cash in the business, which we thought is not necessary right now. Online has a much better return on investment, so that's why the focus. Mr. Devang Shah, what is the minimum investment you can take? How much percent you're willing to give? Minimum investment.
That is, I think, as far as GIF is concerned, it is 5 lakhs.
Thank you for addressing the question. So to address the question by Mr. Raviraj, how is your Ayurvedic medicine prescribed to patients? So this is over-the-counter medicine. We come under the Ministry of Ayush. There is no prescription required from doctors, saying that 5% of our sales come from direct pushing and direct sales from doctors. To answer the question by Mr. Devang, what value you're keeping your company? The valuation is 19.9 CR pre-money. The question by Mr. Vikash, are there any exclusive products for which you're applying patents, which you're not being manufactured currently by established market leaders? So as I said, all our formulations are completely unique. We have applied for 13 patents for our formulation. To talk about unique products, BronchiCure, which is our flagship product, is India's first herbal lung care syrup for asthma and bronchitis. And similarly, the herbal sleep aids that we're planning to launch, again, is something that is yet to be launched in India. I think we have addressed the question by Mr. Janendra, minimum investment. To answer the question by Mr. Sachit, can I know what's your net profit till date? So currently, we do not have profits. We are burning right now. We have burned around 2 CR of money in the losses. Happy to share the financials, audited financials with you. Question by Mr. Patni. All ingredients from Ayurveda are only active ingredients from Ayurveda and herbal. So if I talk about the active ingredients, they are from Ayurvedic and herbal origin. Some of them, in fact, most of them are coming from Germany, which is the herbal side of things. To talk about the preservatives and base ingredients, they are non-herbal in nature, as with a lot of herbal companies. If we start adding herbal preservatives, then I think my price points would have to be increased by 10x. So that is a call that we took. A question by Mr. Janendra, when will we get appreciation? How will we come out? So Mr. Mahesh, would you want to address this question? Or should I?
Yeah. This is a startup model where you invest, and as the company grows, the valuation will improve. And when there is an exit option, more information will be given to all the shareholders, and then they can come out as per their interest. This is a startup model, a little different than the traditional model. So you need to understand the startup properly and take a call. For the benefit of all the people who are on this conference call, if you are interested in any of the 2 startups or both the startups, you can click on the link that is given in the chat, and you will be added to the WhatsApp group. You can have all your queries answered by the founder and the GIF members who are involved with this particular startup. And once you are comfortable and convinced with the opportunity, then you can invest in the company.
Adding to what Mr. Mahesh said, Venture Catalyst, which is our other investor, they recently received a wonderful exit on Beardo. So the Marico family fully acquired the Beardo company. So similarly, we see a lot of scope for acquisition or for strategic tie-ups with various large players or various conglomerates like HUL and PNG. So that is where I see there could be a very good exit for investors, saying that if we raise a Series B or a Series C round, then a larger institutional investor would typically provide exits to angels. To talk about question by Mr. Akshay.
I think we can take one last question, I think for the paucity of time, and then we can do one-on-one calls later on. I see one question with regards to cost of acquisition of customer by Himmat Jain after that one. That would be a relevant one to answer. So if you can just answer that, and then we can take it offline.
So our average order value on our website is around rupees 350. As I said, roughly 15% is cost of goods. Roughly 25% is cost of distribution, which is logistics cost, etc. And roughly 50 to 60% it takes to acquire the customer. So 2 things which are happening here. Firstly, I'm minus 5% or plus 5% on every sales that I make. And the major of the money is coming from repeat orders. Second is that right now it's not just about getting direct orders, but I need to make customers aware of the brand. which is included in this 60% acquisition cost. So as the brand awareness increases, as word of mouth increases, the overall customer acquisition cost we are expecting to decrease.
Sure. Thank you so much. Maheshji, I think we can end the session.
I think once again, the request to all the members is to join the WhatsApp group. And if you're comfortable getting the answers properly, then I think you can move forward. Thanks, Sachit, for the wonderful Q&A session. And now I take the privilege of calling CA Mayur Bum, who's going to give the vote of thanks for today's event. Any queries, any concerns you have for today's seminar, definitely interact with the Jito Incubation and Innovation Foundation team, how we can improve, how we can move forward, what are the things that you are looking at. So all those things could be looked into for the future sessions. Any queries, any investment opportunities that you are interested in investing in, definitely contact the team.
Maheshji, 2 minutes, we want to announce about the next pitch day that we are going to do.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, every alternate Saturday, we will be having these pitch days and we will have startups pitching. So all of you who are there on the call and who are keen to see innovation, please do join and get registered for these. That's one. Second is Manoj would like to quickly talk about how you can invest in these startups that you have seen. This is particularly for the people who have joined for the first time and who are considering this as a alternate investment option. And how you can become members with us. Manoj, can we have you, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Swanbhuti, and thank you, Revati and Sachit, for wonderful presentation.
Pleasure.
For all our members from Nasik and from the youth wing, I would request that this is an best opportunity in this paradigm shift world now. What the shift has taken place, we need to look at the alternative way of creating the wealth, and JIF is getting that kind of platform here where you can invest, where you can grow your money also. And there's a tremendous idea. We almost every month we get around 20 ideas, out of ideas, and we get to our members. So would request everybody to keep in touch, become a member. You can only invest if you're Jito Angel Network member on these startups. The membership is around 1 lakh rupees for 3 years. And we already have around 200 members now, all are Jito members. And we have already invested around 40 crores as on today. In last 6 weeks, we have also invested 2 crores, hard commitment in this pandemic time also. So the type of companies we are getting is a different companies. We have fintechs, we have mobility, we have edutech, different kind of different sectors. There will be an interest which you are already doing some businesses which will get aligned to your businesses, and you may look at for future getting your business aligned with this kind of ideas also. So would request you to keep in touch with us. We have regular members from Nasik also. Milind Bhai is there, who's been there for long with us. Satish Parak is there. Ajay Bora is also already there. He's from that background. So we would request, as and whenever you need any help from us, we would be there to get that helping hand. And also a lot of startups also come to us where we are mentoring them, we are incubating them in our incubation center also. So thank you all for this wonderful session. Anup, please.
Yeah, so I think you can click on the link which is shared also to join the WhatsApp groups. If you have like any of these startups on the chat, there is a WhatsApp link. So you can just press that link and you'll be joined to that WhatsApp group for further interest. I would like now Mr. Bum to give the final thank you vote after.
Yeah. Thank you so much. In fact, Jai Jinendra everyone, and on behalf of the Jito Nasik chapter, as well as the Jito Incubation and Innovation Foundation and our Jito Youth Wing, I would specifically like to thank our first speaker, Shreyans Daftari. I would say that we are really fortunate to have someone of his expertise and credentials. He has quite a busy schedule, and the topic that he has taken is quite an interesting topic. And most important is initially he cleared the myth about the artificial intelligence, and then He gave a very brief update about the usage, let it be construction, let it be agriculture, let it be Mars exploration, or as late as a Corona issue. Everywhere, sometime or the other, we are utilizing this facility, and it was quite an interesting session. And it will be incorrect if I don't thank our both the startup sessions, which was really very encouraging and inspiring. For Mrs. Revati Roy on Hey Didi, the challenges that she had faced and how agile and diversification they did when they moved to logistics, and the way they are impacting more than 200,000 lives by employing 50,000 women. So it was quite an inspiring one to hear this session. And speaking about Sanchit Garg, even on Green Cure Wellness, the startup idea that started just by having an asthma patient in Germany and then going about herbal syrup, and then mentioning about the 90 billion business, of which, in fact, it was surprising for me to know that 11 billion business is only from the herbal syrup by way of on the counter, across the counter market. So I would also want to specifically thank the Jito Incubation and Innovation Center for giving us an opportunity to host this such a wonderful program. And I want to thank all the participants who have not only joined but have actively participated in the entire session and who have joined across all over the India. So thank you once again for everyone for making this session quite interesting, enlightening, and a learning session. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, everybody. Once again, I can see something on the screen. Akshay, you want to announce something about that?
This is just a small announcement on the request of the Jito Nasik. I'm sharing this. We have another session coming up tomorrow. He's a motivational speaker, Dr. Ujjwal Patni. So if you're interested, I have shared the registration link on the chat, and you can take benefit of this session tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you, Shreyans. I can see you still. Thank you for sticking around and being with us till now, right? So I think thank you so much, and thank you to all the participants of this webinar. Great. I think it's been a great session. So would like to end it here, and please stay in touch for exciting opportunities which come through the Jito Angel Network. Every alternate week, we are going to have these sessions. Next one is on 6th of June. So we'll be communicating to you all with regards to the same. Thank you so much, all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you, Shreya.